Okay, so place value. Firstly, in order to answer the question, what is the value of the digit, you will need to understand place value. So before you can actually do it, it's important to read the number. I wouldn't just go straight ahead and read it. It's always best if you can hide some of the number. So obviously you could hide it with your hand. We're just going to cover it up like so. So obviously we've got 0.2, 4.2, 54.2, 354.2, 7,354.2, and then 57,354.2. So that should help us with answering some of the questions. And again, you could also put the labels. So we know this is our tenths column, our units, tens, hundreds, thousands, and the tens of thousands. So if we look at the question, what is the value of the 5? The 5 is 50,000. Now you don't need the comma, but I'm just breaking it up so you can see it's 50,000. Obviously in the exam you could write that in words, so 50,000. Either one of those would be allowed. The value of the 7 is 7,000. And again, you could write that in words. Moving on, if the question said what's the value of the 3, the 3 would just be 300. And in words, 300. And then on to the value of the 5. The 5 is worth 50. And again, you could write it. The value of the 4 is going to be worth just 4. So it would be 4. And then the final one, the value of the 2, would be 2 out of 10. Or in words, 2 tenths. Okay, so if we have a look at using place value then, its uses could be times in by powers of 10. So for example, 1.2 times by 10. We can use the squares to lay out 1.2, and if you're times in by 10, you're getting bigger, which means the number is going to move one place to the left, and that means the 1 moves across, the 2 follows, and the decimal point doesn't move. And again, remember you could put your head in, so that makes sense. The units would move to the 10 columns, and the tenths would move into the units, so everything has got 10 times bigger. If we had another question, for example, if we had 1.7 times 100, if we put that into our table, 1.7 times 100 means it's going to get bigger and it's going to go 2 places to the left. So the 1 is going to move first to the tens, that would be times by 10, and then another place, so it's going to move to the hundredths. The 7 is going to move 2 places, and the decimal point doesn't move. So with this question, it doesn't look complete. The final stage is to put the 0 in place, so the value reads 170. Now on to division. Dividing by 10 works in a similar way. So for example, if we look at 62 divided by 10, if we put that in 1 per square, 6.2. Dividing by 10 is going to make it get smaller, so it's going to move 1 place to the left in the table. The 6 is going to move across and the 2 will follow. The decimal point doesn't move. Now when you read this number, it's not called 0.62. We need a 0.62. If you had another question, like 150 divided by 1,000, the 3 zeros are going to help us to see that it's going to move 3 places, because it's 3 lots of the power of 10. If we look at that one, 150 currently doesn't have a decimal point in it, but we all know that comes just after the number. So if we follow the same process and move it 3 places this time, so 1, 2, 3, the 1 is going to move to there, the 5's going to follow, and so will the 0. As before, I'm going to need the 0 in the units column to make it read as a number. Now, when we put our answer 0.15, we don't need that final 0 because that is telling us, if we think about our headings, units, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. That's just telling us there are no thousandths there, so it doesn't add any value to the number, therefore it's not needed.